Hello, everyone, and hello, world. How amazing it is that one of our international callers is on the line today, Dr. Michaelia Trunka, who was an angel in my life as I went through the decisions relative to uh, choices. Wow. We'll talk more about that in a future call. And it is so wonderful to have all of you on this call today. I'm so delighted to see you. I'm so delighted to be with you in this sacred space. Marla and Alana. Alana, thank you for the email or text message you sent me with the Bodhisattva vow. Right now, instead of the invocation that I often use, which was inspired for me from Charles Fillmore, I'm going to use this Bodhisattva vow. This prayer was written by a Buddhist monk around 700 AD. He was a devoted practitioner and he authored the book that's been come to know, be known as the Bodhisattva Way of Life. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, considers this text to be essential in developing your character and awakening. And the Dalai Lama recites this prayer every morning in his rituals. So give it a try. You'll be in good company. And so here it is. It's a prayer for humanity. May we be a guard for those who need protection. May we be a guide for those on the path. May we be a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May we be a lamp in the darkness. May we be a resetting place for the weary. May we be healing medicine for all who are sick. Michaelia, you were that for me as I was making decisions about breast surgery. May we be a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings. May we bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and the sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. That is the Bodhisattva vow. The Dalai Lama gave me that vow personally when I went to a retreat with him, not knowing that that was going to happen in the late 1990s. It was just a week before my son came to live with me. Interesting how the universe puts things together in exactly the right moments at exactly the right time. And so you may wonder how we're going to work with the 4 acts. This is Ross's second time on the call. And in the first call, which was, I think, our first call of these conversations with Marj, we talked about some of his 4 acts. Not everything is impossible. And Ross and Mary were here last weekend in Kansas City, stayed here at Holly. It was an amazing, fabulous, incredible time. Maybe we'll hear more about that. And what I realized is that, yes, we're talking about the four acts, but it's not about an individual's life now in this call. It's about the first act of Called by Love Institute. Both Ross and Mary are on the board of Called by Love Institute. Ross is on a lot of other boards. You'll hear more about that. So welcome, Ross Hostetter.
Thank you, Marge. Great. Well, it's so nice to see friends on this call. What I want to begin with when we're talking about this Bodhisattva path is to maybe I am not an expert in Buddhism, but I want to talk a little bit about how this is actually played out on the ground for me and what it has involved over the last 40 years or so. And I want to start with a story. This is a story from my second act when I was a trial lawyer in Dallas. When you're a trial lawyer, you have all kinds of cases that are on the docket, and the docket has like 30 cases on it, and you're in the middle of the docket, like you're number 15 for trial. And so most of the time you don't get called to trial, but sometimes you do. And what happens is that Wednesday at 10 o'clock, the clerk of the court calls you and say, you're up to bat. You're going to trial at 1 o'clock. Okay. You're up to bat. Okay. And it's like, really? Really? 3 hours. I'm not ready. What am I going to do? So what happens then is that you get your briefcase, whatever you got on the case. You go down to the courthouse, and my partner and I used to fake it like we had these big sample cases, that looked like they're going to hold a lot of paper. And we would walk in like it was like really heavy with all of this evidence and everything like that. It's got a thin little file in it, which is the only thing that we have. The judge gets up there in the robes and everything like that, and he says, Miss, Mr. Hostetter, is the plaintiff ready? And there is only one answer that is the right answer. And you get up and you confidently say in a clean, strong voice, ready, Your Honor, ready. I'm ready. And he goes to the defense and says, are you ready? And you got a big firm lawyer on the other side, and he starts bumbling and says, "Oh, I really think we need to take a couple of more depositions and get responses to my interrogatories." The judge cuts him off. He says, "Haven't you had 6 months to do that?" Mr. Hostetter says he's ready. I'm ready. The jury's out there in the hallway. They're ready. Why aren't you ready? And although I haven't won the case, I know at that minute I'm ahead. Okay, I'm ahead. So there's only one thing to do. And the very first thing I think of the Bodhisattva vow or this commitment is to make that statement ready. I'm ready. That's a hard statement to make because you are not ready. You know that you're not. Okay. But nonetheless, you are willing to start walking down this path. And what happens when you walk down this path is that you are writing a blank check. Okay. You're writing a blank check to the universe to say, this is a promise that I am making, a vow. Got my whole life in it. And you don't know what is going to be required. You don't when you start. But the cool thing is that you're not just writing a check, you're opening a checking account, okay, where the resources the knowledge, the development, the capacities, the intelligence, the awakening that is going to be necessary for you to fulfill that promise are going to be filled in by the forces of the universe or by the divine. Marge, you've oftentimes said that this work is being on a bicycle built for two. Okay, where the the divine is leading at the front of the bicycle, steering the bicycle, and you're in the back, just trying to pedal and pedal and pedal and pedal and pedal to keep up the propulsion system. So when you make a vow like this, you're getting on this bicycle built for two. And you don't actually know where it is going. Now, I'm saying this in contract terms because, I'm a lawyer. I like contracts and everything like that. But you can think about it in other terms as well, that you're entering into a field of possibilities or an energetic pulse that the universe is moving down, or a direction of evolution. You know, and all of those are really good ways to interpret it. Uh, this what this vow is all about. And I will note that when this happens, things tend to get clarified. They tend to get really simple in a hurry. So just to take a couple stories from, the great spiritual masters that have come before us, the Buddha said, I've just got one thing that I talk about all the time, one thing, and that I demonstrate, which is suffering and the solution to suffering. That's all I talk about. That's it. That's all I do. Okay. And all the rest, the temples and the statues and the eightfold path and everything, that's just kind of working out the details. Those are mechanisms by which this thing can be accomplished. But I got one thing. Jesus had one message. That this was uncovered by the Jesus seminar years ago, where all those long bearded guys got together and they looked into the Bible, looked in through the Latin, the Greek, and the Aramaic, went back and back to all the texts and everything like that to try to figure out what Jesus was actually teaching. And their discovery was he had one topic, which was the kingdom of heaven and how we bring the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And so he was walking around demonstrating the kingdom of heaven and its mechanism, which was love, okay? The interconnected field of love. He was an embodiment of it. And everything he taught, all the healing and everything like that, is all about one topic. I had one of these moments with you just about 4 days ago around your dining room table. We were all getting together with Mary, me, you, and Ed, and we were opening up a field of possibility for the Called by Love Institute. And one of my things that I am being drawn to is what might be called the unity of life or the illusion of separation that is just killing us, okay? Killing the environment, all the polarization, all the separateness and separate stuff. And I'm convinced that there's a first domino there that is causing all of it, which is this illusion that we are separate, which we are not. As science has said that we're not. We know that we're not. All the spiritual traditions say that we're not. But nonetheless, we're in this illusion. And it's just like, well, how in the world do you break a pattern, 100,000-year-old pattern of humanity of seeing things this way? And the solution that came to me around your dining room table was, hey, dude, this is really, really simple. Okay. You get into that state or stage of consciousness where you are not seeing the world as separate, where you are not acting in that way. And all you got to do is just report out what you see. All you have to do is act from that place, and everything's going to take care of itself. This gets really, really simple. So these bodhisattva vows about, they tend to be big things like the awakening of the entire human species, okay? it seems it's an impossible thing. And it is, of course, impossible under your own powers. But at the heart of it, it is that it is one very simple thing, usually. So I just want to start with that simplicity before I move to the next thing about kind of how this has worked in my life. I'll just take a pause there, and Marge, if you want to come in with anything, please do.
It's just perfect. And one of the things I posted on Facebook just yesterday was a quote from the Gospel of Thomas. And the Gospel of Thomas is one of the mystical texts that they didn't include in the King James Version. It was
Yes.
taken out because it was too radical. Well, sometimes I get taken out because I'm too radical. This is the quote: when the two become one, then you will enter the kingdom.
All right. So, that is a promise on the fill up side of the checking account. you when that happens, you're going to enter the kingdom of heaven. All right, so we do live here in this 3D world, this three-dimensional world, and so the next thing I want to turn to is how this is played out in my lifetime when you begin to turn your life over to service. You begin to live to serve. You begin to live to give instead of living to get. You begin to get on this path of awakening, this seeker's journey that we're all on. And the way that I can describe this is you've all heard of the phrase ready, aim, fire, okay, which is like a military thing. We need to get ready and we need to aim and then we need to fire. So we've already covered the ready part. You announce ready. Okay. That means you are ready, or you wouldn't be able to make that announcement. You are. You're ready enough. But in this, it's ready, fire, aim. Remember the bicycle built for two. You are not controlling where all this is going. Okay. But you do have to fire. Okay. And when you do, and you get into the first part of your field of service, whatever that might be, the first reaction, certainly in my case, was, "Holy shit! What have I gotten myself into? Holy shit!" And Jung used to enjoy slang terms like that one that I just used because of their accuracy. And that phrase, holy shit, is incredibly precise. Okay. It is holy, it is part of God, and it is all of this suffering and crap and everything like that. It is exactly a precise description of what you're seeing, okay, from this place. Uh, it's Uh, interesting. Always interesting being around you, Marge. I was in your house this weekend. People that haven't been in Marge's place, it's filled with books. It's filled with religious icons. It's filled with statuary. I would say maybe a little bit too filled, Marge. But it's like every inch of it is filled with stuff. And in the library, in the one of Marge's multiple libraries, she's got them upstairs and downstairs and everywhere else. There was this little pamphlet by this peripatetic mystic called Peace Pilgrim. It was like, is this an accident that this is sitting right out on the shelf where I can like sit there and grab it? And it turns out that Peace Pilgrim was the founding, or might be called the root guru for what we did down in Texas when we were starting the mediation movement, when we were doing spiritual work to turn lawyers into peacemakers. And based on her principles, This thing was an incredible success, a phenomenal success. We went from nothing, sitting in a conference room saying, how do we do this, to complete penetration of the market in 5 years. Every case was going to get mediated before it gets tried, 100%. I mean, that's like unheard of in a conservative place like Texas. So the path was cleared. And one of the things that I remember from Peace Pilgrim, because I read all of her materials, was the way that she would come into a circumstance, her holy shit moment. So she was a vagrant. She walked around the country fasting until given food, walking until given shelter. She slept in parks and all of that sort of thing. Very, very simple lifestyle. She was a peripatetic mystic, a walking around mystic, just like Jesus was, peripatetic mystic. And so she'd get picked up for vagrancy and she'd get put in jail. And she'd be put in the drunk tanks and all of that with people that were being picked up by the police in the community that evening. And when she would walk into the jail cell in the deepest gratitude and thanks, she would say, "Behold my field of service. Behold my field of service." So that's what this is kind of all about when you fire and then you find out what your field of service is. And I'll just note that you're studying the lives of the great saints and mystics. They all fired really hard. They committed. So the Buddha, whose tradition we're talking about today, he gets on the black stallion, leaps over the fence, leaves his life of luxury, and goes out into the night. He has no idea where he's going. And he spends 20 years seeking, trying stuff out, trying fasting and gurus and everything like that until he has his moment under the Bodhi tree where he sees, he awakens. Jesus the same way. It's not like he's going into Nazareth or Jerusalem with a 3, 5, or 7 step system with a secretary that's arranging all the meetings and some big plan. I mean, some pamphlet to hand out to people and to get them to sign up for the email list and all this stuff that we do today. He just starts walking, okay? Just starts walking. And he doesn't have a team. He doesn't have a group of disciples, nothing like that. So it's handling just what's right in front of him. This person right in front of him. This one person that's right in front of him. And conveying what he has, both energetically and what he has in terms of teaching and what he has in terms of healing, conveys it just right in front of him. No plan other than that. And actually, in Acts of the Apostles, if you read it, that's how he instructed his disciples when they said, "Holy shit, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." He said, "Don't worry about it. You get on the road, you walk down the road, you walk into a town, you walk into the door that's open. That's it. I'm gonna I'm gonna handle all the rest. I'm opening the door. I'm telling you what to say. You don't need to worry about it. I'm with you." And then, if no doors are open, you just walk on. Uh, it's really straightforward. Mother Teresa, the same way. Her story, if you look at her biographies, the head of her order thought she was kind of just a nothing none. You know, didn't have a lot of intellectual abilities, wasn't any kind of a rock star or anything like that. She gets her awakening, or her mission, her instruction, her about her bodhisattva vow, which is to help the poorest of the poor. Goes to Calcutta. She doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a place, nothing. And so she just walks out in the street, finds a body on the street that's dying, and the poorest of the poor, drags them back into her little place, washes them, watches them die. Okay, in peace and blessing and everything like that. That's it. Okay, so it starts with these very simple things, but you do fire hard. You make a commitment. Saint Francis the same way. You know, he had all these beautiful robes of his father, who was very rich and everything like that. He didn't want him to get into this spiritual stuff, was embarrassed by it and everything like that. And just, as the story goes, he's sitting there in the middle of the plaza in this big kind of argument with his dad. And he takes off all of his beautiful robes, walks out of the plaza naked. So they do fire hard, and they make a commitment. And this ready, fire, aim thing is something, Marge, you know a lot about, because it describes what, quote, experiential learning is. Okay. You learn by experience. You don't necessarily have to have all the preparation and everything like that. The path itself shows you the way. The learning itself will show you the way. And that is oftentimes called learning the hard way. Okay? Learning the hard way. And I'd like to reframe that just to say that is a way that you learn when the learning is the learning goes hard. When the learning is complete, it's a it the learning is hardened because you know it. Then you know it in your body. You've had the experience of it. You've learned by experience. And any kind of professional, doctor, lawyer, or anything like that will say, what is clinical experience? Well, it's just a making a whole bunch of small, non-fatal errors, hopefully non-fatal, that you can correct, that you're not going to do next time. So you take that, and that's the way that you begin to learn. And you got a PhD in experiential learning, which is very interesting to talk about this path because it is the path of experiential learning, and you get into it. Um, one kind of misconception that I would want to clear up about experiential learning and this path of ready, fire, aim. There's this beautiful Buddhist thing that says, leap and the net will appear. Leap and the net will appear. And in my life, when I've kind of do those kind of leaps, oftentimes the net does not appear. And really what it's been in my life is that you engage and help will come. And I want to talk about receiving help here in just a minute. You engage and help will come. There's a lovely movie out starring Morgan Freeman. It's called Invictus. It's about the South African rugby team and Nelson Mandela's relationship with this all-white rugby team. They get to the finals against the New Zealand All Blacks, who have never lost. They've like crushed the Japanese, like 57-0. It was a huge rugby score. And they've got this one fullback, this huge guy that is their scorer. And the captain of the team just said, nobody's been able to stop this guy. If we cannot let him out into the open field, we cannot let him get ahead of steam and get him running on the open field. So what you do is you just grab him and don't let go. And you're dragged, you got him by the ankle or by the arm or around the waist or wherever you got. You just grab him, don't let go, and help will come. Your teammates will come. And that's more what frankly it's like. I think you just get on this experiential path and you start getting dragged with all the stuff. And then help will come. Help will come. That's the promise. So um, let me just stop there. And before we go into the next kind of the way, because I do think that ready, fire, aim is an important thing to remember.
It's amazing how the simple rules that we learn can become applicable in very complex and important situations.
Right.
And that quote from the Gospel of Thomas that I posted the post actually went into the Unity Ministers Discussion Group, which is a closed group. Only Unity ministers can be in it. And right now, the Unity movement worldwide, one of the largest New Thought movements in the world, is in another phase of their 40-year war.
Oh, wow.
It's been a war between Unity headquarters, which was the founded by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and the Association of Unity Churches, and which sort of felt bumped out, and they formed their own association, and there's been this battle going on. They tried to do a merger when I was very actively involved in leadership and got voted down. It's up again, this question. Can we be one?
Can't we be one? Yeah, exactly.
There it is.
The simplest thing is the
And
hardest. Okay. Walking the talk is the hardest. Yes, and it always is. And in my metaphor, unity's getting dragged over the ground, okay? And, until they have the awakening that they have to have, and sometimes it doesn't really happen. Yeah.
I got a message from a person that I've known since the 1990s, the senior minister of Unity of San Diego, who once offered me a job to be her associate or assistant. And I went to Unity of Tustin instead. And she said, I wish that you would speak up in this group, which I seldom do. I seldom even read it because I don't want to get caught in the turmoil. And
Right.
she said, you have a voice that needs to be heard. And so I posted that quote. And when the two become one, then you will enter the kingdom. And then I wrote, now at the age of 86, mostly my path has been simply to follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit, to hear the downloads and say yes.
Yeah.
Now, some people think I'm making it up. Some people think I'm being stubborn. Some
Right.
people think I'm not listening. I'm listening to the Holy Spirit,
That's
the
right.
Spirit who is my boss. And it's so I mentioned that my podcast now, this called By Love Institute, is the source of my spiritual good. And the people who sign in and are on this call or view it afterwards on replay are my spiritual family. And they're the ones that give light to my life and make my heart feel the joy and the love. And I'd always looked upon this minister as a church builder and visionary. Now she's on the board of the Unity Worldwide, and she's reaching out and saying, I have a vision. Will you speak up? And so I posted and talked about moving back to Kansas City after attending Unity of Tussin and being the senior minister there for 19 years and loving every moment of it. Things happened, changed, and my heart felt broken at times.
Yeah.
And then I moved back to Kansas City after my brother's death, and Ed calling me and
Right.
saying, it's time to move back to Kansas City. I said, well, I don't know. I don't like ice and snow.
Uh-huh.
And he said, just come and spend a week with me and celebrate the 50 years we've known each other. And let's talk about it. And so I did. And the end result is I bought a house sight unseen that Ed found through a realtor that he had never had a dealing with, but was inspired. to call her. And I am absolutely clear that this house, Holly, we call it, is a God job. It
Yeah,
has
they're
a holy purpose. It's a sanctuary.
right.
And there's more to come. And we'll talk about that in the
Yeah, just a second. So,
John
Marge, what you're
14.
talking about there with that story is kind of responding to the pulse, by being on the back of the bicycle built for two, and how it plays out in unknown ways, and also get you into situations that you wouldn't possibly imagine that are necessary for your learning and growth. And so I want to go to just one other couple of other things here, kind of cover this ground, and then I want to get into all of our stories and everything like that. So I want to talk for just a second about this next thing that I've experienced, which does tie into what that minister is doing, asking for help. I want to cover that in just a second, but I want to talk about flaws and imperfections, because when you're saying ready, we know that we're imperfect and we know that we are flawed. Okay. God knows this. The universe knows this. The whole growing up and waking up and showing up process is all about the flaws and imperfections. The Bodhisattva vow is all about the flaws and imperfections. It's all about the suffering. That is its topic. Okay. It's all of its flaws and imperfections. And I just wanted to lead with a little bit of a story that might be helpful. This is an Act Two story. It's no lawyer story. I was in law school, uh, finished my first year of law school. Uh, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. And so the economic basis of me going to law school pretty much disappeared. I thought that he was going to help me and everything like that. And I was out in Washington, D.C., far from home. And I decided that I was just not going to go back. Okay. I was just not going to do it. I was going to make it here. I was going to find a job. I was going to find a way to support myself, find a way to put myself through school. And that turned out to be a pretty hard task for a first year lawyer. I wasn't like super top of the class Ivy League type guy. And I'd walk around these buildings in Washington D.C., looking up at all these tall towers and everything like that of Law City, USA, and said, "There's just got to be a place for me here somewhere. Got to be somewhere. I'm starting down this path. I'm seeing this as a path of service. Okay, there's got to be a place for me here somewhere." And I was just getting no, 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 and all my resumes because I didn't have all of I didn't go to an Ivy League school and I didn't go to an East Coast school, all that kind of stuff. And I sent my resume in and I got a thing back from this smaller but still very, very good law firm and just said, okay, we've got a job. Why don't you show up for an interview? So I get all my suit, white polyester suit, looking like John Travolta. I'm sure I look like a popsicle stick. Ridiculous looking thing. Got my game face on. Start walking 12 blocks from my terrible basement apartment with bars in the window, and it was all I could afford at the time. And I am walking down the street, and Washington is a town that is full of pigeons. Okay. They crap all over the statutes. They're everywhere. And just like a cruise missile, this pigeon comes down K Street and with complete and absolute accuracy craps all over me. Okay. And on my forehead, and all down my suit, everything. And you just said, okay, well, it looks like the act is over here. We're not going to be able to do it. So I walk into the receptionist office, beautiful office, flowers, lovely, beautiful woman sitting there at the front desk, and just said, "Can you help me?" She starts laughing and said, it looked like somebody just shit all over you. Said, that's exactly what happened. Makes a little call back to the guy and said, it's going to be a couple of minutes. And uh, we go into the bathroom, and I didn't realize that well-dressed women in those big bags kind of carry a little stain kit, with them. Mary scares one. She pulls out her little stain kit and everything like that, and starts, she's got all the towelettes. She's like perfectly prepared, for this thing. And I'm like looking at this beautiful woman, working down my torso, cleaning me up, cleaning up all my. So this is not bad. If this is all that I get out of this is not bad. And we get to an adequate degree and admitted into the partner's office. Okay, so here's this guy, big guy, looking down with his, very scowling face over his three-quarter glasses. And you're sitting in this big chair. You remember those chairs, Marge, where they're the big man chairs where the women, if they're small, they can't put their feet in the ground, so they're sitting there like a little girl. Okay, you can't put your feet on the ground. These chairs are so big. And, mine can barely touch the floor. And he's just saying, Mr. Hostetter, I just heard from our receptionist that you came in here covered with shit. Is that true? And I said, yeah, that is true. And he said, well, I'm glad to hear it because that's what we do here. Our clients come in covered with shit and we clean them up. They write indictments and everything like that. If you're looking for some still silk stocking law firm, you've got the wrong place. And by the way, you're going to be working for me, and you're the low man on the totem pole. If we take you for this job, you're not as useful to me as a secretary or a paralegal or anybody else in the office. So guess what you're going to get? You're going to get all the shit that nobody else wants to do. Are you ready for that job, Mr. Hussett? And you just say, yes, sir, I am. Okay, I am. Closes the file. And he said, great, I'll see you 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, $18.50 an hour. And it was like, wow, this is a job. And that was a point where $18.50 an hour was real money when you're only paying $100 a month in rent. You're like, I can make my rent in one day. Here, I've got like a whole social economic class. And it's just an example that the flaws and imperfections are oftentimes and almost always the time thing that gets you on this bodhisattva path. Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, is a classic example of all that. He was lying in a bed, hapless, drunk. He'd been hospitalized many, many times. He was lying in there, complete desperation. Hospitalization wasn't working. Nothing was working. His friend comes in and says, "I've got this little, 5-step system. You ought to try to try it out." And he has an awakening moment where he realizes that the only solution for his problem is to help others with the problem that he has, with his deepest flaw and his deepest imperfection. That is where his path of service comes. And the path of service, oftentimes, on almost always, frankly, will come through your deepest flaw, your deepest imperfection, the problem that you have. So, if you are confused, it's likely that your work is going to be to bring clarity. Okay. If you are traumatized, it's likely that your path is going to be dealing with trauma. If you have money problems, it's likely to bring all kinds of abundance to other people. Okay. And by healing others, you heal yourself. You cannot not do that. That is an unbreakable spiritual law. When you help others, you heal yourself. You heal others, you heal yourself. And so that's the kind of bodhisattva way. And then just as kind of a side note on this, and that is the main thing. That's the main thing. So this is this whole like hour that we're spending here, I'm just really kind of talking about the fundamental main things. So that is the fundamental thing. And right now, um, we are in this era where many quote cleanup paths are being offered. And all religions and all traditions have a cleanup path. The 12-step spiritual model has its cleanup stuff, stop drinking, take a fearless moral inventory, admit your flaws specifically, make amends where necessary, cleaning up your relationships. The eightfold path in Buddhism, that's a cleanup structure. There, get right relationship, get right livelihood, get right view, clean up, for this work. Christianity, it's same thing. It's got its seven, deadly sins and its seven cardinal virtues, and it'd be a good idea to replace a sin with a virtue. Okay, you kind of got to do your cleanup thing. And now just everybody, we've got all these cleanup paths that are there, all kinds of yoga and hatha yoga and chakra balancing and sound healing and on and on and on and on and on and on in the cleanup paths. And all of them are useful. But I guess if I'm offering advice, is that these are in fact secondary. The path itself is the primary. And then these things are going to be very helpful when you're on the path, the Bodhisattva path, because you're going to be able to apply them immediately, and you're going to be able to teach them for others. But they're not conditions precedent to getting started. That ready thing that you did, and when you talked about going to Holly, that movement, to get into is the first thing. So all this cleanup is not a condition precedent. Okay, you don't have to be perfect or clean or anything like that to start, because that's going to happen along the way, and the path itself is going to clean you. So you just keep walking the path like little fish Dora. Keep on swimming, and it'll clean you up. And the imperfections and flaws, which we all know that we have, okay, are what make you both available and qualified. So I'll leave that there, but I think that's just an important thing to know when we're looking into ourselves. You are already there, and I will just note that there's some very fundamental things, and Marge, you and I talk about relationships all the time, relationships with Ed, relationships with Mary, and stuff like that. Just a very pedestrian thing, like being in a committed relationship with somebody. It's going to clean you up. It's gonna challenge you. It's gonna clean up. It's what something Mary and I have been doing for each other for the last 40 years. And just a quick story. I was in yoga yesterday, and you can always tell the single guy, okay, in the yoga locker room, because it's kind of a tight space, and you've got these cubby holes where you've stored your stuff and everything like that. And there's a bench there that can maybe seat three people, so three people can get dressed at one time. Yeah, a couple of breaths. But the single guy, he's got his stuff sprawled all over the bench. Okay, he's got his bag out. His bag is sitting in front of your little cubby. His yoga mat is lying parallel, taking up the whole bench. Uh, he pulls out a snack and starts to eat it, looking at his cell phone, and we're all sitting around there, in our towels, looking at this guy, and we say, "Oh, yeah, that's a single guy." He's completely oblivious to everything. It's just like all him. You just kind of gotta love that. But relationships will clean you up. So some of the most basic things, being on the path, being on the relationship, and then of course taking these system approaches are really good. I've got my own little 9-step system that I'm developing, but they're in the most use, not in a spiritual tourism way, but uh, for really help when you're on the journey. So I'll stop at that point, and then I want to talk about receiving help, which is just what your minister asked for.
often we don't know what we're being shown. It may show up a year or two later. And an example of that is that when Ross and Mary were visiting us at Holly, the first time 2 years ago, I said, "Oh, I want you to see the Bodhisattva. I want us to go to the Nelson Art Gallery, and I want you to see one of my favorite temples inside the gallery, a whole Buddhist temple." And
Right.
we walked toward it, and
Sure.
we could see it in the distance. And the Bodhisattva seemed far away from us. And yet, as we progressed toward it, I said, "Oh, let me take your picture." And you were standing right next to the Bodhisattva.
Right.
And notice it's higher than you are,
Uh-huh.
but it's got its hand directly pointed to you. And it's saying, "You're it."
You're it. You're it. Yeah.
Did we know what would come? No, not
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, we sat at the dining room table, and with the same picture of that bodhisattva on the wall above us, and we did 1 hour of visioning for Called by Love Institute. And the thing that shocked me, it's hard to shock me relative to visioning, but it did. And all of us shared, Ross, Mary, myself, even Ed was sitting at the table and shared. And in an hour of visioning, not one word came up about the current cultural crisis, the big division. It's like it's part of the cleanup.
Mm.
And it was quite incredible to me. Ross and I both recorded it on our iPhones. We'll go back and listen to it later, because obviously we may not be ready for what it would have told us,
Right.
because we haven't done as much cleanup as we need to.
Yes, exactly right.
It
Yeah.
was interesting sitting at the breakfast table this morning. Ed and I were sort of involved in, I was first involved in answering a text related to the Unity Ministers discussion group. He found that disgusting and difficult, and uh, said to me, "Sometimes it's so hard to have compassion." And I thought, I didn't say it, but he's here, he'll hear me say it now. I thought, I feel that same way about you sometimes.
Yes, exactly right. So it's just like it's going to be right.
Difficult to
It's
feel
the
compassion.
cleanup is right in front of you.
It's
Yeah.
right
The
in front of
response,
us.
you don't have to look that far for it.
It's amazing how that goes. And I'm amazing. We have to allow for people to have their own choices. And an example of that right here on Called by Love Institute is when I sent Garth all of the pictures. I sent him this picture of you, Ross, which
Oh,
I love. I think you look so fabulous in that picture, your hand, and
my
your
daughter
head
Melissa
sort
took
of
it. Yeah.
tilted and
Right.
in a contemplating way. And Garth sent me a text back and said, "I like the picture we used last time better. Let's use it." Did
Yeah.
I get upset and say, "Oh no, I just let it be"?
Yeah, sure.
Have to allow the people we're partnering with, who are part of the Bodhisattva path with us, whether or not they realize it. I don't
Right.
know if Ed realizes he's on a Bodhisattva path. We've never talked about that. Maybe we should. Maybe we could. And maybe we can't.
Yeah.
And so, what do you do when you can't? For me, what I found is going into the stillness.
Mhm.
silence, and just letting it be, and letting that energy, the energy of the bodhisattva, the energy of spirit, dissolve whatever is in me that's getting triggered. I have no power to dissolve someone else's triggers. It doesn't work.
Right.
But I can dissolve my own in
Right.
the stillness, in the
Beautiful.
silence. I can take that deep breath, just breathe and let it be. I can ask spirit to take this from me. And what I find is that meeting frustration with frustration never works for me. It's too
Right.
painful.
Right.
Meeting anger with anger never works for me. It's too painful. Not,
Right.
it's painful to me to
Yeah.
respond. And so my safe point, my point of entering the silence, gives me time to breathe, take
Mhm.
a deep breath, and move back into the field of love. On the wall behind Ed's head, there is a plaque that I put there that says, living the path of love. And just above it is a cross. It has the vertical dimension and the horizontal dimension. And I keep being reminded that Terry O'Fallon talks about the big balloon. You don't want a skinny balloon that just holds itself up like this. And you don't want a flat balloon that stays at exactly the same level of consciousness where you are. You want a big, full balloon where you can watch when you feel the triggers, go into the silence
Right.
and watch spirit love descending through all of the colors of the rainbow. Watch it embracing, watch it put its arms around all of the experiences that someone else is having. All of the experiences that may involve wounds of their childhood, that may involve feelings of loss or disappointment. I've had so many of those. Death has been a big one for me. Even betrayal has been one of the points where I felt disappointment. Just allowing that to experience the embrace and knowing that spirit is at work in all of it. And so, David Hawkins has been an amazing teacher for me. And David Hawkins asks, is there any answers a question someone asked, where a person asks, is there any impersonal truth that's independent, or what about our individual condition and our individual feelings? Don't they are that truth? And he says, truth gets its validity from ultimate sources, from spirit. It's spirit that descends. It doesn't represent the personality. It doesn't represent our opinions. It does not vary with any condition that anyone feels. Those are subject to what you're experiencing in your individual environment, in your past, in your present, or learning for future time. Ignorance does not yield to attack. It dissolves in the light, and nothing dissolves it faster than the simple act of revealing the light.
Yeah. So just to follow up on that, Marge, you covered a lot of ground there. Um, about the silence and receiving help. But since you are, one of the things I was going to kind of conclude with was, talking about this path and how it reveals, quote, the truth or how it wakes us up. You've opened that. So I want to get back to getting help because this is, the silence is a form of it. But this, this path wakes you up. In the Christian tradition that I understand probably better than any of them, they often describe the waking up process as remembering. They have a beautiful word for that. Anamnesis is the word, the anamnesis, with anam meaning the soul. Okay. The anam cara is the soul friend, the soul remembering itself, awakening. And this other gorgeous term, aletheia, which is oftentimes transferred as truth. That's how it's transferred in the Bible, aletheia. But it's not, that's really not the most literal translation. It is really that which wakes us up from sleep or death, lethe in the middle of the word, the river of sleep and death, the opposite of that. That's what wakes us up from sleep and death. And as we start to walk this path and develop the capacities and tools of it, we begin to remember. Okay, remember who we are. And I think we remember that in maybe three different senses. So I want to just unpack those very quickly. One is to intellectually remember it and have a kind of an awakening experience in the mind, which just says, "Oh no, I get it now. I remember who I am." That's oftentimes what we think about when we thinking about awakening. But the other more literal thing is to remember, to rejoin, to join the membership, to join the members of this Bodhisattva vow community that is working throughout the world, to be rejoin the members of the kingdom of heaven, to rejoin that group and to become its member, a card carrying member, which is what you get when you say ready, Your Honor. You get your membership card. Okay. and and then the other even more embodied way of thinking about remembering is about a new capacity or new part of your body, your physical, mental, emotional vehicle is going to come in. So you remember all those scams where they used to sell you death and dismemberment insurance, like so when you're dismembered, you lose an arm or you lose a leg or something like that. Very rare that that happens, that you wouldn't die or something like that. And that's an old kind of a slang term. Males tend to refer to their sexual apparatus as their member, yes, but it's part of your body. That's the whole thing. So you're going to remember, you're going to get a new body part when you walk this path, a new capacity to to do this work in the world. A new part of the body, and it can be the physical body. That's happened to me. I've received incredible, like healing and strength and just amazing kind of genetic transformation. Doing this kind of work, this capacity will come in, but it builds back in, builds a part of you that has maybe been separated or lost. The soul level, the spirit level. And one of the things you do so well, Marge, is you're always inviting that spiritual level to say, come back in, you know, remember, well, let's get back into this. And you're part of us. We may have forgotten that you are the most important part, inviting it all back in. And what you do, in the silences you talk about is asking for help. So maybe I just want to cover this one final thing and one other thing about receiving help, because I think that this is an important part of the journey of a bodhisattva. The story that you just said about the woman that is on the big council of unity, she is now asking for help. Okay, she's asking for insight, asking for help. And I'll give you another Act Two story, trial lawyer story. I was in my first trial, hot shot, thinking I had all the answers and stuff like that. And I was just getting hammered in this trial by a very experienced trial lawyer on the other side that was this objection machine. I couldn't get a piece of evidence in. It was Wednesday afternoon in a week-long trial. I've gotten like one piece of evidence in and, put on one, and I was just getting killed. You know, my clients were, even though I told them I didn't have any experience and this was a first time with me, they were just saying, I didn't realize you were this inexperienced. you know, it's like you ever watch the movie My Cousin Vinny. He's like trying to figure out how to do all of this crazy stuff. It's a great movie talking about it. And I was so just completely confused and just knocked around and beat up, being kind of dragged through this whole process that I had locked my keys in my car. And this was after, we were kind of kids, so our response was to go to the bar and pound a couple down, after the bad day trial. and so I'm like reeking with beer. I get up this old parking garage in Dallas, those empty parking garages when they're all empty, they're very scary and everything like that. And it was like, oh no, what's next? My keys are in my car. I can't get in my car. And down the ramp comes this beautiful shiny Mercedes, and a woman presses the button. Zzz. I didn't have a car that had that kind of button, and it turned out to be this woman I'd met at the bar association. She said, "Ross, do you need some help?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Well, okay, well, why don't you get in? I'll take you home and everything like that." And it's always the feminine for me that usually is the source of healing and help, almost always come in. And man, that Mercedes felt really good. It was clean, and you have that lovely sound of that luxury car and the way that the door closes so solidly and beautifully air conditioned. She's all dressed up and just said, "Well, what do you gotten yourself into?" And so I let her know where I was in trial, just complete disclosure about how bad I'd screwed this thing up. And she uh, drives me home. We start talking about it. Sits there for 45 minutes, and she was an experienced trial lawyer. And said, "Tomorrow morning you need to do this, 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 this. Tonight you need to do this, this, this." And it's just like, thank you. The teachable moment had arrived. Okay, asking for help and receiving help. And I did what you said, caught the other guy in a lie, and the sky just opened up. And we won the case. We got a huge verdict on Friday afternoon, you know. And it's so this thing, and when you're talking about going to source or to the silence, that is asking for help. You're in an overwhelming situation. You know that you don't want to respond in anger. You know you don't want to respond. And so asking for help and receiving that help as it is given to you is a really important part of this path. And this help may come in ways that are very unexpected. And when it comes, you need to take it. you need to you need to take it. My old wilderness guide trainer just said, if you caught a big pike and it's going to feed your whole crew, and you know that you're not going to let it go, you pick that sucker up by the eyes and you land it. You you claim it, okay? So it's like you grab it by the eyes and you say yes to it. And the universe is not stingy. It's going to give you what you need, like your house in Holly. Another story is, I was back from the trial lawyer days, or when I was doing mediation, we were living in this place, McKinney, Texas, 30 miles outside of town. And I had a 30-mile commute in, 30-mile commute back out again through this incredible, terrible roadway, full of construction, full of all these cars that are just hot and screeching, all of these Texas vehicles, these big, huge black trucks with flags flapping and all that kind of stuff. And it was like saying, if I'm going to do this, I need a safer car. I'd almost gotten into a multi-car pileup and everything like that. You're watching people roaring up behind you about ready to rear end you. And this was happening on a weekly basis, these huge pileups, injuring all these people on this road. And it's like, okay, need a better car. And I got a gift from my mom, of some like proceeds of her estate that she wanted to do for gifting. It's $35,000. So I go to the auto place, the BMW place, and there's like a pre-owned, beautifully decked out gold BMW 5 Series. What's going to cost me? 35,000. Here's a check. And like the universe saying, well, you like this. you know, and you might think you're hot shit because you're driving this now fancy car. But let's understand what this is. This is a utility vehicle. You ask for it. It stops quick. It accelerates quick. It can steer off the road. It's what you need to navigate this place. So this is just a utility vehicle. And that's what the sort of things will give you. I think this path will give you. It won't give you all of all the security that you want. It won't give you all of that stuff. It's not going to be perfect, but everything that is necessary will be present, and everything unnecessary absent. The universe is very efficient in that way. So when you're asking for help, help does arrive. Like that Invictus story, help will come. And so it's really important on this path to ask for help and receive the help that is given, because it might not be what you think it's going to be.
And so one of the ways, we have about 15, 20 minutes left, and I'd love to take this pause point, and we talk about two things at the pause point. We talk about receiving of the love donation, and we talk about signing up to join the tribe. And if you scroll down in the email, you're going to find buttons for both of those. And, sometimes people tell me, oh, I didn't realize that you had to join the tribe in order to get on the mailing list to receive the emails for Called by Love. Yes, you do. And so I scroll down and join the tribe, get on our mailing list, first step. And Ross, you're going to talk about love donations as opposed to charging.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I want to do this Marj in a context, in a spiritual context. So, in our tradition that we share, Christianity, it has a very clear teaching that you give and you're going to get a tenfold return. Okay. It's like the promise. It is
And it
exactly
will be given unto you.
and will be given unto you. So this isn't like, okay, I'm going to make an investment. I'm going to get a, 10x return. But on the Bodhisattva path, what happens is that you do something that is on the path. You do something that is really good, and then you will almost always get 10 times that amount of new things coming into you. So the spirit of giving in the Bodhisattva path is giving of your time, giving of your resources, giving your money. That return then opens up the spiritual cycle of abundance. It is the spiritual cycle of abundance where you give and you receive. So one thing that just happened this weekend in terms of giving and receiving, um, when Mary and I have been working on this little apartment complex that you're the owner of, and we've been trying to create a bodhisattva, do a bodhisattva vow there that is love and above, serving the people there first. before money and everything like that. Uh, I'm the trustee of your trust, as you know. People have trusted me with things. And so we got this little apartment complex that we're working on. I'm the trustee of your trust. So what comes in, okay, this weekend comes in, this guy that owns all these apartments said, Ross, will you be the trustee of my trust? Okay. It's like $25 million in assets. And part of me says, wow, I must be a hot shit lawyer, man. If I can handle all this and handle all this complexity, I must be like the dude, woo, and everything like that. And then you, Ed, Mary, and I drive out to one of his apartments. And we see that it's sitting there in this very impoverished community, in this black community. It's like, looks like about the only functional dwelling place in the whole town, you know. Part of the whole Kansas dark and bloody ground that they were working with freedmen coming across the river. And it was a station for the Underground Railroad. And it was a freedman's town and stuff like that. And Peace Pilgrim's sitting there tapping me on the shoulders. We're looking at those old black guys, walking around and looking at it. They're looking at us. We're looking at them. And she's saying, behold your field of service. 10 times the size of the one that we're doing now. And then it'll be 10 times more after that. And so these things come as we respond to the field of service. So I'll just say within this, what we're doing here, what Marge wants to do is have authentic teaching, authentic stories from real life. And if it's part of your path of service, do give to it. Yeah.
And as we were going on that drive, which I had never been in that area in Kansas City, even though I've lived here before and after ministerial school and ministry, we drove by a corner experience and I said, oh my God, what is that?
John Brown.
A statue of John Brown. Well, who was John Brown?
Right. Well, depending on your perspective, he was either the guy that started the spark that started the Civil War, was the greatest hero for African Americans that ever existed in American history, or the most vile domestic terrorist. If you're on the other side, he was but he was a committed figure. He had his own bodhisattva path. I'm not going to take John Brown's path, Bible in one hand and shotgun in the other, which is how he's depicted in the Missouri State Legislature chambers on a big mural. But he was somebody that basically said, enough of the suffering. We're going to do something about it. We're going to lay our lives down to end
Just
this thing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we have one more thing I want to announce. The call next month on October 15th, the third Wednesday call. The person that's joining me is part of what I see as a miracle. Brad Laughlin is coming back to be on the call in order to talk about his experience in this tour of the United States and some of the miracles. Ross is attending an event in Boulder, the first part of October. And I thought, oh my God, those kinds of events should be happening in Kansas City. And then I had a dream. This is just a couple of 2 or 3 nights ago. And in the dream, Brad Laughlin was there and David Hawkins was there. And I knew David Hawkins from the other side was saying, go for it, go for it, go for it. And I began making the connections and calling people, and called Victor, who's head of the Buddhist Center at Unit Buddhist Temple on the plaza. And Brad will be in touch with him. They're linking up. And the plan is for Brad to talk about what'll be happening the end of October. And that will be happening right here in Kansas City. Interestingly, the Buddhist temple is right across the street from a beautiful Hilton hotel. And one of the things that I realize is that when I was at Unity in Tustin, people flew in, Michaelia is an example, from all over the world to attend some of these events. Michaelia came from Vienna, Austria to attend a retreat at Big Bear. And that hotel is right there, could accommodate lots of people. And if it's only a few people, there's a hotel just 5 minutes from Holly, my beautiful home in Briarcliff West, that could accommodate a small group. Holly itself could
Right.
accommodate a very small group, less than 10 people per, probably a handful. It's not about numbers for me, and it's not about money for me. So I told Brad, I said, you work that out with Victor. So we'll
Right.
have an interesting call, and we only have 10 minutes left, and I
Yeah.
want to give people a chance to
Yeah,
raise their hand.
let's do that. But just on that note, Marge, in terms of a demonstration, we're on this Bodhisattva path. Every single one of us is a walking demonstration site, also
Yes.
a walking construction site. And uh, but the thing is that like you got the impulse, you acted on it, and that's all that's required. Just what's right in front of you. It's like a yes or a no. You act on it, and then it moves in ways that you can't possibly imagine. You don't know what Brad's going to do to the city of Kansas City, when he gets here, and what he's going to do in combination with Victor. And we can't predict all these combinations, what happens in the field, and the interrelationships that grow from it, and everything like that. You can't predict it, but the promise of it is that you're not in the front of the bicycle, so you don't have to worry about that. The multiplication is going to happen. So yeah, let's see if there's anybody have any questions. Tess,
There's someone that's
see you.
raised their hand
Yeah,
already, and it's a caller that's calling in from their phone. So Garth, can you bring that person in? I have an idea of who it is, but I'm not sure. Um, can you bring them in? And caller, you're unmuted. You begin to share.
Oh, hi. Hi, Marge. It's me,
Laurel,
Laurel.
I thought it was you.
It's such a beautiful call. I just loved it. And I want to share with you really quickly that you were talking about two becoming one. And there's a really sacred time right now. We're in the Hebrew month of Elul. And Elul is an acronym for Ani Lidodi Vidodi Li. I am to my beloved as my beloved is to me. And it's the preparation month that comes just before the Jewish New Year, which is in 1 week from. It's 1 week from. It's on the 22nd is when it starts that evening, and I just want to share about the two becoming one because Elul is this preparation time, and then during the holidays of the New Year, and then the day of at one-ment, it's returning. It's a process called tshuva, which is people think that it means to repent, and it does mean that, but literally it means to return. And
mm,
so it's about connection, and so it's returning to God, returning to the soul that lives within you. That's a piece of God. So returning to your own truth, returning to your path, returning to your mission, and returning to that connection with God and that deep relationship. And so I just thought that there's just so many things that that were touched on today that just have so much to do with that. Even on the Day of Atonement, the 13 attributes of compassion is one of the prayers that's woven in several times. So there's just so much that was touched on, and it was just such a beautiful call. And so I love you, and I just wanted to say hi.
great. Yeah.
Oh, Laurel, and you can see I'm holding up the beautiful chalice that you gave me. And the
Oh,
words are inscribed on it. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. We
yes,
are
and
one.
that's right, and I remember that.
I
It's like the
treasure
frosted,
this.
yeah. Yes.
Ross said, "You sure have a lot of treasures." Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And is
Oh,
there anyone else that wants to raise their hand? You can do it either by waving or you can do it. Tessalyn, Garth, can you bring her on and unmute?
She is. Hi, Tess.
Okay, hi. Oh, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for all your sharing. I just wanted to share what's been happening with me as of late, and it's been happening um, in the midst of all the conflict, all the chaos, and I've been following things very closely, like on Midas Plus and Aaron Parnas, and really receiving all the news as soon as it happens. And what's been happening for me on my in my interior is this: I've I'm abiding in a place of knowing that we're all one, watching all this conflict and the us versus them unfolding, and just feeling like, wow, this is there's a part of me that just feels like this is happening so that we awaken. And so I'm just holding this space of knowing that that there is this place of unity that we're all in, and there are many people who don't know that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just wanted to share that I'm having this experience. It's pretty awesome.
One thing, Tess, you and I've had so many great conversations over the years. What you're the division and the discord and the pain of it and the death associated with it is right out there for everybody to see. And one of the um, insights that I got a while back in a channeling thing is, why is it set up this way? Why do we feel separate? Why are we going through all of this separation and all this pain and all this suffering when we know that we are one? We already are living in the unity world, in the pure love world. And if you have a mystical experience, you just get that full on. You know that that's a fact. It isn't just a hypothesis. But that the suffering has its purpose, and what that one of the main purposes of it is it makes us long for home. Okay, long for it. And if you're just in it all the time, it's just given to you as a free gift. You don't know what it's like to have that gift taken away and have to now long for it. And then it also requires us to start to do the work and to build capacities and to build compassion, which is right what this bodhisattva thing is all about. It's building the compassion and building the work and building the muscles and the capacities and everything like that, so that when we return home again, we we appreciate it and we know what it is, and that we also are greater souls, ready for our bigger universe careers. Okay. So it does have its purpose. And I, like you, hope that its purpose is not the destruction of all life on this planet.
Yeah.
That would be a terrible thing. But big big risks are taken because the stakes are big. And we'll make it, Tess. I know we
Yeah, I just love that ready, fire, aim. It's like, oh no, oh wow. I spent a lot of time aiming, without firing.
will.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's answering the call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Tessa,
Thank
by the way, is a
you.
beautiful, lives in Boulder. She's a
And Marla
very talented
Williams has
musician.
her hand raised. And we
Ross.
will
Yeah.
go over a
Let's
little
hit
while.
Marla, and then maybe we'll close. Thank you, Tess. Okay, let's get together.
And Tess, have Ross share with you where Brad's going to be in Boulder if you live in Boulder.
Yeah, I do.
Because you might want to check that
Yeah, I'll
out.
send it over.
And Marla, Garth, can you bring Marla on?
Hi, Ross. How's it going?
There
Fine,
you
Marla. How are you?
are.
I'm sorry.
I loved your comment. Behold, my field of service, question mark. I see you in the role of the Bodhisattva every time you attend one of the 12-step meetings that you go to so often and are so committed to. And that is a Bodhisattva path. Absolutely. So share with us your insights from the call, your oh my God moments.
Well, we don't have time for that. I just wanted to ask Ross one question because I probably won't get another opportunity. And it's about your grandchild. I was wondering if you can just say one thing about your grandchild.
One thing? Well, her name's Aletta. There's one thing.
Well, it could probably be a whole call, but we only have time kind of for one thing. So if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Well,
Thank you.
I can tell you, a bit of the, the backstory on that. But maybe I'll just put it in a larger context. My daughter, Melissa, is her mother. And she's got a beautiful, radiant child, Aletta, who is creating her context by her existence. You come into the world, she's healing her parents, okay? Healing her dad, healing her mom, Melissa and Matt, Aletta's dad, are not going to get married, So these children come into the world and they have a bodhisattva mission, and hers right off the bat is healing. And it then creates a context, a loving context that she is going to require for her upbringing and to bring her soul fully in the world. And that's kind of what this is all about. It's a great example of it, how you do that as a child. She's doing that kind of unconsciously, but I'm not so sure that that isn't happening on some sort of a conscious level where it happens. And we, as bodhisattvas, we can change our context so that we can do our work. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. And that's like 100%. You get the context that you need. And we should do a whole call on motherhood. We really should, because that is one of the primary bodhisattva paths in the long story, the long genetic story, giving birth, through your body. And it's the primary. And thank you for raising that, because when all this yap that I've been doing, you can't forget the primary thing. And that's it. That is really one of the most fundamental.
And we will, and Mary Hostetter is on the list of people who will do calls, and I will, she's on this call too. I'll especially ask her to spend some time talking about that and maybe show some pictures. And I also see Michaelia, and from Vienna, Austria. And Michaelia, if you would be willing to come on and say hello. Wow, how important you have been in my life. And I don't know whether you had intended to raise your hand. You had sort of moved into a position for it. But are there others who would like to share in the last moments of the call? Michaelia is not perhaps at her computer right now because not seeing her. Alana is the one that sent me that post. Thank you, Alana, how significant you have been in my life. I love that um, beautiful, beautiful prayer for humanity that came from you. It was lost in my files, and so I was so glad that you brought it back to my attention. Thank you so much.
Great.
And anyone else before we conclude? I am waiting to see if any hands come up. And next month, October 15th, Brad Laughlin will be on the call, and I'm totally delighted and looking forward to that. And here's Ross and I, as we had lunch the last day he was here, and looking forward to the delight we shared in finding that beautiful luncheon spot that I did not even know had a brunch. And you can also see my smile and my laughter, and what a gift it is to have those kinds of happy surprises. So thank you so much, Ross. It's just
Thank
been
you,
a
Marge, for letting me on the
wonderful,
call.
wonderful time. And so, so appreciative of you and all that you stand for.
Yeah, thank you.
Much love
Right back to you.
and deep gratitude. And thank you, oh beloved one. Thank you, oh Holy Spirit. Continue with this experience of let me remember that I am one with God. It was a beautiful song composed and written by Oman and Shante and sung by Carrie Norman at my ordination. Carrie is her actual name. Shante was the name that Oman and she used as they did beautiful duets together. Let me remember that I am one with God.
Yes.
And so we'll see you again next week, not next month on October 15th. And think about joining one of those experiences. If you're from Boulder, there's some the first weekend in October. Ross can give you information. And there will be one here in Kansas City the last weekend in October, starting on Sunday with more to follow. So much love, many, many blessings.
Peace to you, Marge, and everyone on the call.
Thank you.
And to all sentient beings. All right.